couldn't join us, and so we'll be recording this so that they can hear what's said, and hopefully we can have some good conversation to help other people with this. If you would, during the presentation, please stay muted. But after the presentation and the question and answer session, we will sort of have an open forum. I really want this to be a platform for you. So we want to open it up and to see where you are experiencing challenges, see if others can't help with that, and also to hear some of those success stories, especially the success stories, because this is a difficult time and there's no one right way to do everything. We talked about that in the class, that every department is different and how they handle things can be a little bit different as well. So there's probably going to be lots of different ways of doing stuff, and I hope we hear some novel ways today. Without much further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan. So Jordan, take it away.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. So this is my first time using Microsoft Teams, so hopefully everything goes all right. I'm going to try to share my screen with you guys.
So while Jordan's getting set up, I'll introduce him, because that's what I should have done. So Jordan is a lieutenant with the Peters Township Fire Department, which is just outside of Pittsburgh, and he's also their Recruitment Retention Coordinator. So we're fortunate to have him, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Absolutely, Spencer. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys. So we'll talk a little bit about a Citizens Fire Academy that we had the opportunity to host last fall. Again, we're just south of Pittsburgh. We protect about 23,000 people over 20 square miles in our first due district. A little bit about me briefly. I began as a junior firefighter in 2009, changed over to part-time in 2016, and then a lieutenant and full-time in 2018. Currently, I'm on a daylight schedule. Every day basically deals with COVID-19 and our response. I'm working in our emergency operations center, do a lot with our PPE, logistics, planning, and I'm acting as the PIO for this incident. Normally, I do community outreach and education. As Spencer mentioned, I handle our recruitment and retention programs and our communications, social media. So we previously had hosted a Citizens Fire Academy back in 2012. Our current chief, who was then a lieutenant, ran the program, and we met last summer and decided we wanted to give it a try again. So it was really well received. It went well. We had 7 participants, as you can see here on the screen, and it resulted in 1 volunteer out of those 7. Additionally, one of the gentlemen standing there is on our council, so it was great to have some of the council people really understand what we do. Some of the drawbacks and difficulties associated with this course were the fact that it was time consuming to plan, prepare, and get the class together, as well as the delivery of the course took a lot of personnel hours. It took a lot of PPE and just required a lot of resources in general. So when we were planning that earlier in the summer of 2019, I decided to reach out to one of our mutual aid companies, actually an automatic aid company, which is North Strabane Fire Department. They're just south of us. So we work with them almost every single day. We respond to all automatic fire alarms, vehicle accidents together. So I felt that this would be a great opportunity for us to showcase how closely we work together and the partnership that we have to our residents, because it is important that we have that type of relationship. So we partnered with them for this class. So not only did it highlight our relationship, but it also allowed us to combine our resources, our PPE. As you can imagine, outfitting 16 lay people with fire gear is a little bit difficult. We don't normally have, 16 to 20 sets of gear of all different types of sizes flying around. So it was great to be able to partner with them and have a little bit extra. Additionally, the personnel required. So we're dealing with 16 people who have never worn bunker gear, have never operated a saw or been on a hose line. So from a safety factor, we wanted no more than 2 students per single instructor. So when we pulled all of this PPE, the resources, personnel together, it made it a lot easier for us, as well as we were able to share the cost at that point. So when we look at our planning phase, it was important to me that we had even collaboration between the two organizations. So it worked really well working with North Strabane, but it was important over and over that everything we were doing was based on input from both organizations and not just one of us. We developed our purpose statement and our learning objectives that supported that purpose. So our purpose was to increase awareness of both emergency and non-emergency services provided by Peters Township and North Strabane fire departments. This awareness should result in a greater understanding of our organizations, the financial and human resource needs, and the dedication required by career and volunteer firefighters. Some other things that we had to look at and that you have to look at when planning a course like this was the length of the program. So we ended up going with early fall and a 6-week course. There are some departments, some other organizations, police academies that run an 8 to 12-week course. And we felt that our participation may go down because it's a lot harder to commit to a course that long, especially when you're looking at parents. So we felt that 6 weeks would be a decent number for us to give this a try, and it ended up working out pretty well. We had 3-hour classes. We had to look at things about liability, waivers. We discussed our marketing strategies, our application process, and how we were going to select the candidates. And then something that's important was what does success look like? How are we going to measure our outcomes of that course? And at what point would we deem this whole ordeal a success or not a success? So we developed those strategies as well. So the program goals were to obviously, as we mentioned, increase awareness of the fire departments. So both departments operate on a combination system. So we face a lot of questions and a lot of confusion from our residents about what exactly that is. We have a lot of people that think we are fully volunteer. Then there's the opposite side that thinks that we are fully career. So it's important that we educate people on what that is. We talk about our emergency services, our non-emergency services, which are very important. We place a heavy emphasis on non-emergency services in our district and prevention activities, community risk reduction. And at times it's difficult to get that message out to residents. So when we're educating 16 people and then they are continually telling their friends, their families, neighbors about it, we have that trickle down effect of getting whatever message we're trying to send out to the community. We wanted to increase understanding of the financial needs of the organization. Again, it's like these, we're dealing with multiple sources of funding, from private donations to municipal funding and grants. So we felt it important that they understand how exactly we get money. We wanted to increase awareness of the personnel requirements for the volunteer and career firefighters. And with that, there was a heavy emphasis on both the emotional toll that it takes and the physical toll. And then we wanted to provide adequate knowledge to participants in order to take action during an emergency. So we put a huge fire prevention and education portion of this class in. Finally, we wanted to gain interest of participants for joining one of the fire departments as a volunteer. So you can see our learning objectives. We mentioned a couple of these, but just familiarization with the local fire departments, how exactly to handle an emergency. We focused a lot on the 911 system in one of the classes. So from the time that someone presses send on their cell phone all the way to when a police car or fire engine pulls up to their house, we wanted them to understand that process. Part of that was taking a tour of our 911 center. They were able to learn from the dispatchers while we were there as well. And then finally, like I mentioned, the demands of firefighters, both physically and mentally. So here's a brief course overview. This changed a little bit as we went through the classes. We learned certain things that I'll talk about in a few minutes here that caused us to slightly tweak this to better fit the way that we started to see the classes going. All right, so getting the message out was one of the most important parts of this. So we started out with a press release. We ended up with print articles in multiple newspapers. Quite a few different sources picked it up. We had social media posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Peters Township has township-wide email blasts through our township as well as our recreation department. And then we launched a specific website for this program. If I have time, I'll show you guys what it looks like. Otherwise, I'm sure Spencer has your emails and I can email some information out to everybody. But we had a website launch that had an online application as well. And then we did some paid social media advertising through Facebook, which is fairly inexpensive. So $10 to $15 can reach a few thousand people, and we find that it's fairly effective. And then finally, word of mouth. So once we put all of this out, over the course of about 1 week, we received 16 applications. 13 of them were from one community and 3 of them were from the other. So obviously there was a large disparity there. Thankfully, both departments still participated 100% and, acted as though it was a little bit more spread out between the two. But given the results that we had with the class this year and the amount of people that are already contacting us about the 2020 program, we feel that this number will be a little bit more even. We had 6 male and 10 female participants, and then we had 10 participants over the age of 60. So obviously one of the goals with this program was to recruit and gain interest in potential volunteers. So as I was reviewing applications as they were coming in and saw that we continually were getting people over the age of 60, I was a little concerned with it because it wasn't necessarily hitting our target audience, or at least at that point, what I had thought was our target audience. But you'll see as I explain over the next few slides, that quickly changed. Having that wide range of diverse participants was huge in the way that the class ended up going. Whether they're going to be able to be a volunteer or not, there are other things that we can ask them to do, and they're taxpayers still. So for them to fully understand what their fire department is huge, and it had a lot of added benefits that we'll go over. So our course delivery. Night 1 was our orientation. There's a picture of it here. We went through introductions, paperwork, gear handouts, station, and apparatus tours. So during night 1, we realized at this point that this would be way different than what we had expected when we were thinking of the course and planning it all out. The level of interest and participation that we received was like totally unprecedented. So I'm sure many of the people involved in this this meeting right now teach classes to the public, and you're used to the level of participation that you get. For the most part, most people are paying attention. They're making eye contact and they're responding when you ask questions. But this group of people was just nonstop direct eye contact. They were hanging at the end of every single word, waiting for the next one. They were engaged like I've never seen any other audience before when I've had the opportunity to teach. So it was just totally unbelievable. And we do a lot of public education. So to have an experience like that was phenomenal. We ended up talking about it when people left for around an hour and a half, just how different this experience was from others. We found that age was not a concern. So everybody that was part of the class ended up getting gear. In the coming weeks, they participated in the physical portions. If they weren't comfortable with one of the physical portions, they would take a step back, and then one of our other firefighters would pair with them and explain to them what the other people were doing. And they still enjoyed it. They had a great time. We had a great time. There was a buy-in that developed, on night 1, but continued over the following nights, of our departments, our organizations, and specifically our needs, which is really important. And we just continually saw that there were so many effects that this had on people, far more than what we would have ever realized, and that are going to benefit our organization. Another thing that we saw was less PowerPoint, more question time. So obviously in a lot of courses that we teach, education that we do, there are questions, but often they're not relevant, or there just aren't that many of them. The questions that the participants in this course asked were just spot on to what we were talking about, questions that I wouldn't even have thought to cover in our PowerPoints. And they gave so much to the class that it really made it what it was. So after night one, I started to build that into every course. We decreased the PowerPoint time. I added a lot more time into questions. And then eventually we added more time to the hands-on portions as well. So those were the realizations after the first week. As we went on, here are some other key takeaways. So a really incredible relationship formed a couple different ways. So organization to organization, although we work every single day with North Strabane on automatic aid, it really strengthened the organization between us. You would see our crews eating dinner together, the nights of the courses. It just built the camaraderie that was already there, as well as the organization to students. I mean, these people really developed a relationship with us, and they enjoyed seeing us. We had people that had to miss one night due to weather, and they were crushed by it, very upset. They emailed me to get the PowerPoints to make sure that they were caught up by the next class. And when we got to the graduation, they were crying because they weren't able to see the friends that they had made with the other students, as well as our firefighters, in the weeks to come. So it resulted in long-term buy-in from the students. They check in with us frequently. They call us, they Facebook message us. I get emails from them all the time. But a lot of those emails contain offers for help. And what they've been doing, we've been able to kind of tap their help a little bit. So we had a few things happen a couple weeks ago where we needed help from residents, social media wise. There were things that from a fire department, I didn't feel that we should be responding to, and that perhaps another resident should. And I was able to reach out to a few of them and see if they could take a look at some Facebook posts that were false and respond to them with their point of view, which they did. And it totally changed the way that that specific post was going, which is very important to us. Additionally, we had people that were showing up to township council meetings, not by our request, and speaking on behalf of the fire department or in support of the fire department. We were recently considering building a third fire station and staffing it 24/7. So clearly that's going to be a significant cost to our township. And they found out that they were going to be discussing it at the meeting, and all of a sudden a few of them showed up to voice their support of the fire department and our need for that station. So all these different ways these people were popping up in support of us that we never thought would happen after a class like this. They're very vocal about our financial needs to their friends, neighbors, families. The fact that we and really good at getting that word. Very importantly, it resulted in 3 volunteer firefighters, 2 of which are female. So 1 came to our department and 2 went to North Strabane because they live within their district. And so far they've been phenomenal adds. So for a couple month program, recruiting 3 volunteers, garnering this community support that we were able to was just fantastic. Some things that we're looking at for next year, adding 1 more week to the schedule. 6 weeks plus 1 graduation was a little bit tight. So we feel 1 more class should allow us to fit a few more things in. We're planning to do some type of approved live fire exercise. A few other departments that I've seen do these classes are able to basically do a fire scenario where people are able to look on from a safe standpoint. So we're hoping to do something like that. Less PowerPoint is important, and we want to keep concepts simple. We had an essentials instructor that was involved in one of the departments that taught one of the courses, and he's phenomenal. However, it got a little bit too in depth for a lay person. So we want to make sure that we're keeping it on a basic level. And although not everybody was able to physically volunteer for emergency operations, we had a ton of input and requests to be involved on a non-emergency side. So as we look now at forming a community response team to help in pandemics such as COVID-19 or natural disasters that are going to help us with getting supplies to people in need, this group of people is absolutely perfect for it. And they are so interested to help. Many of them have IT backgrounds, they have business backgrounds, accounting backgrounds. And again, although they can't participate in the emergency operations, they've offered to help us administratively and with our non-emergency operations, which oftentimes, as all of you know, it's more difficult to get people involved in those items. So it's just everywhere we turn, there were hidden benefits that we weren't expecting. And then finally, there was such a deep meaning to so many different participants, including our firefighters. This course had a profound effect on me. It had a profound effect on everybody else that had the opportunity to deliver this to our participants. So I've got a short video here that kind of sums it up from quite a few people that were involved. This was produced by our township's media department. I had asked them to be involved and to do a little bit of recording. So we'll play this real quick and finish up shortly. Spencer, are you able to hear it?
No.
Okay.
I can hear it now.
We recently had the opportunity to partner with North Shirvain Fire Department to provide the Citizens Fire Academy to both of our communities.
The Citizens Fire Academy is a way for a citizen to learn about the inner workings of the fire department, why we do certain things the way we do.
Signing up to be a part of the Citizens Fire Academy gives a resident a really unique opportunity to get a behind-the-scenes look at what our department and organizational does for the community.
We came down for an open house, and I was like, this is really cool. And then I think one of the chiefs wrote back and said, well, we're going to have a Citizens Fire Academy. I said, sign me up.
This particular course taught me a lot about things to look for, things like keep your doors closed during a fire. There was just a lot of good information that I gathered from this class.
Obviously, connecting with the community, I think, is what is good about having these types of programs. The hands-on is incredible, which I did not expect.
I think the most beneficial part of this class is learning how many different things the fire department does.
Every week, I had things that I was bringing home and telling my husband and telling my friends.
I really like the fact that we learned a lot about emergency medicine while we took this class. Every week I went home with another new thing.
My biggest takeaway from being involved in the Citizens Fire Academy was more of an insight from the citizens' point of view about the fire department.
Everyone should feel safe that their fire department is just a phone call away, and you will be there to take care of them.
We are a very fortunate community to have such professionalism and top-notch people, top-notch equipment. We're so well protected.
I would encourage people to take this course. I think that's the best way to learn about it and to truly come to appreciate the resources that we have in our community.
It doesn't matter how old you are, how mobile, there's something in each class for everyone.
You should take this class. You won't forget it. I thought it was one of the best classes I've ever taken.
Jordan, that's some good stuff. You ready for some questions?
Yeah, I am.
Okay,
well,
so go ahead.
I'll throw a couple conclusions together real quick. No, you're good. So I'll send this all to you guys after, but just a couple finish up items that we had is that it almost holistically in every part of our organization, it had an effect. So recruiting, both for operational positions and administrative retention, it got a lot of our guys and girls that may not have been involved as much as they had used to be back involved, because once they were there for the first night of class, they started developing the relationships with the students, and then they made sure that they were there every single week after. So it was bringing people that may have dropped off a little bit back into the station. It had an effect on our fundraising by all of these people getting the word out that, you know, we aren't municipally funded. We are to a certain extent, but we still rely on donations. Our public support, creating a community of advocates. I don't know if Pat Lynch is on this, but she writes a little bit about that. Having those people that are going to go out and support us when we're not there to do so or to talk on our behalf is huge. And again, that was another big part of this. And then finally, obviously, the fire and life safety portion. The fact that we were able to teach people how to respond to medical emergencies, fire emergencies, dealing with hazardous materials, et cetera, was a great opportunity and something that they are able to pass on to their neighbors and their family. So that's pretty much everything I have, Spencer. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys. I went a little bit over, but my contact information's there. I've got a lot of information on this. I can share a lot of advice, what worked for us, what didn't work. You guys are very welcome to give me a call, or you can email me and find me on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Jordan, thanks very much for presenting on that. That was, yeah, that was pretty enlightening. I really liked the guy that was so excited. He's like, sign me up, you know, he was great. So
he's great. He calls me all the time.
Is that right?
He's pretty good. Yeah.
You could just see the passion in his voice when he was talking. It was great. So I do have a few questions for you. Okay. So I'm just going to start down the chat list here. Some guy named Tiger, I'm not sure who that is. He said, were the logistics worth it for 7 people?
So the original class, I would say that the logistics were worth it, especially since one of our council members was on it. We had 16 participants in this class. So, I mean, there was a lot that went into it, but the effects that you saw through that presentation, it was absolutely worth it. And we plan to do it again this year.
Great. There's a couple of questions about advertising, and you hit on this a little bit, but could you talk about the advertising again? And also, do you feel like the paid Facebook ads were a contributing factor to the age range that you found?
Sure. So can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this was the Wix site that we created specifically for this. I think we may have paid $150 to get this site for 12 months. That included the hosting and everything. And I built this in maybe 3 or 4 hours, and that included a mobile site. So this was like the one-stop shop for anybody that was interested. This was a big part of our advertising. You can see the application here. And this is the link that we ended up putting out on Facebook. I'm a big fan of Facebook advertising. We use it a lot. I think that the number of people that you're able to reach for the amount of money that you're spending is very effective. So I've had nothing but positive success with it. Now, with that being said, I didn't limit the age range that we were promoting to on Facebook. So that absolutely could have affected some of the people that people over 60 that did apply.
Sure. You know, all that was just another language to me. So let's see. So Mike out of Tennessee wants to know if you talked a little bit about your insurance. Was there anything special?
Not really. We consulted with another department that we were aware of that ran this. Our solicitors looked at it, but they really had no issue. Obviously, there was a waiver that they had to sign, releasing or supposedly releasing us from liability, both the department and the township. Okay.
And Paul out of New York wants to know, did the participants leave with a CPR certification?
They did, yeah. They left with CPR and AED certification.
Excellent.
And actually stop the bleed as well.
Oh, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Karen from Virginia wants to know, does your community also have a CERT program?
So that's something that I'm in the process of developing currently. We had started with it just prior to that, and it was at that point just an idea, but the fact that so many people as a part of that class wanted to be involved in it, that really got it off the ground. So we're actually putting some of that to use right now during the COVID-19 pandemic by shopping for elderly citizens, picking up prescriptions, things like that.
Well, that's great. What ended up being the time of day and day of week that you had the classes?
So we had our classes on Tuesdays from 6:30 to 9:30. We found often, I was very adamant to the other instructors that we would get done at 9:30. Because we obviously need to show that we respect people's time. And we often ran right up to 9:30, and literally everybody wanted to stay after. So we would basically leave it up to people. If they wanted to stay an extra 30 minutes, they were welcome to stay around and chat with the firefighters, look at gear and whatnot. And I would say that most did every single week.
Okay. All right. And so it was one night a week for about 3 hours?
Correct.
Okay.
We started in the first week of October, I believe, and we finished up in mid-November with graduation.
Okay. And the student selection, was that first come, first serve?
It essentially was for this. We got 16 applicants, and that was our max that we would take in.
Okay.
From what I can gather for 2020, it's going to be, we already have almost 16 people interested, and we haven't even advertised it yet. Wow. So unfortunately, I see the potential that we'll have to turn some people away. What
do you think the max is?
Unless you have a ton of resources, I wouldn't go far more than 20 people. Okay. I think that would be our absolute max.
Okay. All right. And you guys are going to do another academy in the future. How do you keep it delivering the magic?
So it seems that what we did worked pretty well. I went back to everybody who was involved in it to try to see what it was that we could do better or do differently. And I asked them to be blatantly honest, and I got no feedback that was to change anything. The only thing some people said was to add an extra week, or that class could be a half hour longer. So
excellent. Excellent. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
What and you talked about you guys are working towards a CERT team, but what else are you doing to keep them engaged after the class? And I know you talked about specific examples of helping you with certain issues, but is there another way?
So we created like a Facebook alumni group with them.
Okay.
So either we'll post things that are relevant to the fire department at that given time, or a lot of them will check in. In January, we actually planned a little get together right after the holidays. And we were able to give them a poster that we had made with the pictures from the class, and then a challenge point as well. So it was a nice time to have some coffee together, and we were able to update them on incidents that we had as well over the past 2 months that we hadn't seen them.
It sounds like a great program, Jordan. And thanks so much again for showing everybody. And we'll see if we can't get this out to everybody. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, Spencer.
And so from here, we want to sort of shift gears, and really, I'd love to hear everybody how you're coping with the recruitment and retention in the COVID-19 age. And so, would anybody like to speak to some of the challenges that they've managed to overcome, or some of the challenges that they haven't? I'm just going to open it up, and basically, if you move your mouse on your screen, you should see a microphone, and you can unmute your button to talk. So, would anybody like to share?
Hey, Spencer, it's Dustin Hamilton over here in Oregon.
Dustin, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Spencer?
Everything's good. What's going on, man? How are y'all dealing with COVID-19?
Well, for lack of words, we kicked all the volunteers out for the time being. We don't want to get anybody sick. Don't want to get any of their family members sick. We can kind of control what our career guys do, but we can't control what our volunteers do outside. So that's been a little rough for me, because I literally can't do anything I was hired for. But what I am doing is I'm putting up a lot of memorabilia and I wouldn't really call them, more so morale posters and stuff up, not like the cat hanging from the cliff saying, "Hang in there, guys." Just marketing, putting signs up, our logos up, trying to spruce up the place. And so when our volunteers do come back, hopefully some of that passion and drive comes back with them. We had to cancel our high school program for the rest of the year because schools are closed till probably September. So it's been rough. I don't know what everybody else is going through, but that's kind of where we're at.
That is pretty rough. That's almost extreme. What do you think the long-term effects of that will be? Are you in touch with the volunteers, and do you think they're going to take this, that they still want to belong to the department after this?
For the most part, our volunteers completely understand. I've had a few that have called me pretty hot-headed, saying, well, you guys just don't want us there. You're trying to kick us out. And I was able to diffuse some of those, and some of them you just, it's like talking to a wall. But for the most part, I think people are going to come back with a little bit more fire than they had before, because they kind of had that breakaway. One, they're going to get some rest, or two, they're going to miss it. And I think they're going to come back with a vengeance, to be honest with you.
Well, I think that's yeah, I think that would be great. And I'm glad you're still finding a way to still you know, have it a morale booster, so to speak, for them, even though they are gone. And I'm glad you're staying in touch with them too. So who else is experiencing something challenging? Obviously we all are, but anybody else want to share what they're going through and how they're overcoming things?
This is Mike in Tennessee.
Mike, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Appreciate y'all doing this.
Yeah, go ahead and tell us what's going on.
We've conducted interviews very similar to this, Teams or Zoom or something, and there's an element missing from the interview to get to know the person that well. And of course, there's also an element missing within not coming into the fire station as a volunteer to get a feel for how things are handled and ran and get that. So I've got a handful of people just in limbo since all this has started. Very similarly, we have we're a combination department. We have asked our volunteers not to come in, so we are running at minimum staffing with just our career guys. We have stayed in constant contact through same formats here, Teams or Zoom. We've had conference calls. We've kept on top. They're all understanding, but at the same time, they all got into this the same way we did. Is we want to help, and being told, hey, you can't help in this capacity. Nobody likes to be told that. So, but we're all erring on the side of caution. But I've conducted these interviews for volunteers, and it's difficult to get a good read, a good feel. So we've kind of left them in limbo. I've allowed them to register to do some of the FEMA classes. But yeah, learning to deal with it this way, it's new for us.
Mike, what's your message to your leadership about how this could affect volunteers in your department long term?
So we've had that conversation about once a week. We have a minimum training requirement, hours per year plus standby time per month. Obviously, the numbers are going to be waived, but we have tried to express to them that we like to train as a department. We like to be active. We like to be seen in the community, and we've completely changed our operations. We're running out of a second station, an outlying station, because our Station 1 is still connected to City Hall. And so we have been vacated from there because we still have codes there and everything else is there. So we have moved out for the fear of us bringing it back in. So trying to keep everybody upbeat, trying to keep them informed is the best we can do. But to be honest with you, we have suggested that they send the message out instead of us, and they have yet to do that. But nonetheless, it's getting communicated. It's just, everybody likes to hear it from the top. So we've tried, but I think since we're all in this together, we're all trying to figure things out. There's a little bit of slack extended on all ends. So.
I'm sure. I can't imagine how difficult it is to convey that, especially with all the priorities that are going through chiefs' heads right now, and that's got to be something there's a lot going on. So, well, thanks, Mike. Anybody else would like to share? I want to hear some success stories. Anybody got a good success story?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Who is this?
This is Dan Considine from Menon.
Dan, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad.
Good.
Well, I just was a little taken aback by those last two topics, because we're 100% volunteer, and if we basically said, yeah, volunteers don't show up, we wouldn't have any response. So I'm to me, it sounds a little, I guess, surprising that, if we're all firefighters or all, first responders, and we're telling half of the force or whatever that they shouldn't be showing up. I just, our chief is doing a great job. We have a volunteer chief, and he's pulling us in, and we're doing what we can with online training and responding and doing everything we can for COVID. But I don't know how we would address, a volunteer or like a 60-40 group or 70-30. How do you tell the bulk of your workforce not to show up? I really don't understand how we're telling volunteers not to show up. That's gets me.
Sure.
Spencer, Dan, this is David from Rochester, New York, Brighton Fire District. I could share a few minutes if you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do, David. How you doing?
Great.
Good.
I hope
Go ahead.
everybody's doing well. So we run 3 stations, combination fire department, about 35 paid firefighters, about 85 volunteers. And we change the path pretty much every week on what we're doing. One of the things I realized relatively early when we stopped interviewing volunteers through online method because we chose, we had to meet them, was all of a sudden we have 2 openings in our career side, but we're interviewing career guys, but we're not interviewing volunteers. So I immediately said, wait a minute, if we can do it for the career guys, we can do it for the volunteers. So we are just about to start interviewing volunteers. We did an online information session that we run quarterly, and it happened to have happened the 3rd Monday in March. So we did that totally online. We figured we'd have about 20 people online. We had about 40, and we are going to start setting up interviews for those people. And we just have to make it work. There's just no option. What our volunteers, volunteers were certainly trying to minimize the interaction between all of our firefighters, both paid and volunteer, because of the social distancing. But our volunteers respond to calls in their personal vehicles or in the trucks that they're supposed to drive. And then we all stage at our apparatus or our personal vehicles, and the manpower that is needed for each incident is used, and everybody else stays a social distance away. Certainly it's been a challenge, but we do, our volunteer squad is still running. Our drills for our rescue that our volunteers maintain happens with limited people. We have 4 people going to do it instead of anybody that wants to show up. We just have to sign up for the shift. They show up, they do the drill. We do temps of everybody that goes in the firehouse, paid and volunteer. Our paid guys get temp twice a day, every 12 hours. Our volunteers get temp when they walk in the firehouse. If they have a temp, they can't go in. And then they do the drill and then they leave. And we're doing online training for our volunteers as well. Certainly it's not perfect. Hands-on training is certainly missing in a big way, but we're trying to do as much as we can to keep everybody intimately involved.
David, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it sounds like you guys are adapting to the situation pretty well. Anybody else have some other success stories?
Spencer, we've kind of had to do a half and half approach where, within 24 hours, our paid staff sees all the other paid staff during shift change one morning and then the next morning. So in one day, all of our paid staff could be infected. So it was really important to us that our volunteers remain healthy, because if things get bad, they will be the only thing we can rely on. So we're kind of doing a hybrid where we've prioritized calls. So volunteers and career staff can only come back for all calls. So if it is a structure fire, a vehicle accident with entrapment, or the on-duty officer requests an all call, then everybody can come in. But for lower priority calls, such as wires down or even an automatic fire alarm, it's the on-duty crew only that is supposed to handle it. So it's just kind of slowed the amount of people in the station.
Thanks, Jordan. And has your call volume increased as well because of this?
Our call volume's gone down slightly.
Okay.
And like everyone else has mentioned, we've been doing a ton of Zoom training. So we started filming different things. So that's kind of helped. And just for everybody to see each other on this type of a forum has been helpful.
Good. How about sort of changing directions? Has anybody had an outflux of volunteers because of the situation?
So Spencer, it's Bill Morris from Bushnell's Basin.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
I'm great.
Good.
So what we had to do was limit all the high risk people, and the older guys, unfortunately, the people that are in the high risk group, if they have cardiac problems or diabetes or anything like that, and excuse me, we asked them to basically do this on their own. We didn't want to have to call anybody out, but we ended up having to call some people out because obviously we know their situation. But that everybody else, in fact, we had a second success story. We took in 2 volunteers in the past week, interviewed one today over the phone on a Zoom call. He turned in his paperwork. We're doing the background check now. Both these guys are really right where, for the basin, are good people for volunteers. One's 37, one's 44. And they're, that's a good demographic for us. So other than that, unfortunately, I think in the county of Monroe, in the Rochester area, our department got hit more than anybody else. We actually had 3 guys that ended up with COVID-19, including our chief. So,
wow, is he okay?
Everybody's okay. They're all
good.
Back on the load, but
good. That's wow. How is? Go ahead.
This is Karen McQuaid, Loudoun
Karen.
County, Northern Virginia. Hey, you were talking about some of the other concerns about output of volunteers. In our area, MWA, Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, which handles our Dulles Airport and our national airport, they basically informed us that all of their employees are not permitted to volunteer. And I will tell you that a lot of our volunteers are career with MWA. We've also had one other jurisdiction close to us that's done the same thing. We're seriously concerned because the majority of our volunteers, that's their career elsewhere. So this really is going to hurt us if we keep seeing this trend of jurisdictions saying that career personnel can't volunteer elsewhere. That's one of our concerns.
Karen, do you have an open dialogue with those departments? Is there a way to explain to them how it's affecting you? And I can certainly understand their fear, but is there any movement on there?
So no, we are not opening communication. I think it's one of those things where, if someone were to come to us and say, please change your policy for the betterment of, another jurisdiction next to us, we're going to look at our staffing and saying, this is going to be the best for our staffing and their families. So I understand what they're saying and doing. It's just that if this continues, we're going to have some difficulty. Right now, we are career daytime, mostly volunteer in the evening, and really we're doing well right now. But if this continues with other jurisdictions, especially private transports, then we are going to be hurting.
Yeah, that's difficult. That is difficult. Go ahead.
Spencer, this is Zach Hoddle from Woodstock. I was just
Zach.
We've had some of the same issues Karen has with some different businesses and things, telling people that they shouldn't volunteer because of the risk of COVID. We've actually had to reach out to some of our people who live rather far out and usually don't make incidents to try to work on duty crews and things like that to fill in some of the coverage. So we think that's going to have a big impact on us as well, with the people not being able to come in. In reverse, on the other side of the coin, though, we have had a lot of luck and a lot of department pride in how we're responding to COVID in our community, and we're really trying to push that we are still here, still doing the job, and we're the place that's sharing information with our community and things. And I think that our volunteers, our members, have a lot of pride in the fact, and that has really encouraged them, even though it's a tough time, they're not coming in the station, we're on lockdown and everything else, that they can say, we're 2 steps ahead of everybody else in our area, and that they have some real pride and some real buy-in to what we're doing, which has helped the ones of us that can still come in, want to do a little bit more.
Zach, are you guys, are you using what you just talked about? Are you using that to your advantage through social media or your communication to the community that, hey, your community needs you or something like that?
We are. We've really, we've picked up our COVID-related outreach through our social media channels. For a long time, there really wasn't anyone else doing anything, and we've seen a lot of feedback with that, positive feedback from the community and things. And we're hoping, we kind of are going to pivot away a little bit from, while still keeping, some of the health stuff, but to some more positive things, which we're hoping is going to be able to draw a good connection with, hey, this is a good organization, maybe we should volunteer there. So we've got a lot of good community feedback. I don't know if we've had any direct recruitment results, but we hope we will pretty soon.
Excellent. Excellent.
Hey, Spencer, this is Jennifer Motherway in Oregon.
Jennifer, how are you?
Good. I just wanted to share, we've kind of taken the opportunity to do some pretty fun, like, read alouds on social media and, just kind of trying to, like, stay engaged and keep the community interested in what the fire department has going on. I had one of my captains do a hands-only CPR video. He did like a 2-minute video, and that guy will do anything for me on camera. So I can always count on him to help me out with some of these engagements. But next week is also National Volunteer Week, and I plan to do a daily, run through our social media just to kind of continue to share, hey, these are our volunteers. This is what they're doing for us and for their community, and we love them. And I think that will help everybody else on that call too, if they do something like that, just to kind of keep that social media engagement going. I think it'll be a positive thing for everybody here.
Absolutely. And thanks for bringing that up again. Yes, Todd had mentioned a couple of other people in the chat that next week is National Volunteer Week. So I think you've got a great way there to recognize your volunteers and to showcase them individually, to let the community know just what they're doing out there. So that's a great idea and a great time to do it, obviously. So
yeah, and I've also been being engaged with our volunteers through Zoom and any kind of other virtual meetings that I can, just to make sure that they know we're here. And in fact, I chatted with our chaplains this afternoon, and we're creating a little tool to help with our first responders for grocery delivery. They've got a truck coming to his church to one of my chaplains' churches next week to help with some grocery deliveries, just to kind of lighten the load a little bit.
Excellent. Excellent.
Hey,
I think we've got time for one more share.
Spencer, Bobby Hill.
Spencer, this is Teresa.
Hey, Bobby, Teresa. Okay, let's go with Bobby first.
Hey,
and then we'll get you into Teresa.
Thanks. Just a few quick things here from Virginia Beach. We are a big military area, and our volunteers that are active military actually have been told they can't volunteer at this time, which is understandable. They're most of them, they're restricted to base or back home or whatever that is like that. So that's hurt us a little bit. And we've had some businesses that have told their employees who are volunteers, if you pull a duty, don't come into work for 2 weeks. We want you to isolate, which we're trying to work that out with the community as well, to get them to know that it doesn't necessarily mean just because you're on rescue squad duty that you had an exposure. And then we're not actually doing any recruiting at this time. We're just focusing on retention, but no active recruiting. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing, Bobby. That's just crazy that the businesses would, well, I guess it's just a lack of education. There's so much going on and sometimes not the best information. So thanks for sharing. Teresa.
Yes, Spencer. So my spring campaign was supposed to be next week. So recruitment campaign, the TV, the radio, etc. So I moved that. In the meantime, like Bobby, I'm focusing on retention. I'm still sending the handwritten birthday cards. And yesterday we did a morning shift and evening shift where we took all our apparatus along with other responders to the hospital and showed our appreciation, and volunteers were permitted to come with that. Our volunteers cannot come to the station. However, they can respond on calls. I created a handwritten card to send to each of them next week for Volunteer Appreciation Week. I'm helping them fill out their unemployment, fill out the applications for the $350 for National Volunteer Fire Council, just anything that they need in their personal life. I'm trying to keep in touch with them and make sure there isn't something that they don't need.
Thanks, Teresa. And I think, yeah, that's a great point. You know, I think as recruitment and retention coordinators, especially on that retention side, we really have to pay attention. It sounds like you are. So thanks so much. We're coming to the end of our hour, and I know we could probably go on. I'll be honest with you, I'd reached out to several people before the meeting and said, hey, I'm worried about things being silent in this little discussion time. And so would you mind talking if I call on you? But thanks so much to everybody that shared tonight. And thanks again, Jordan. That was a great presentation. And that was just the passion from you and the passion from the people that took your Citizens Academy was great. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things before we leave. We do want to do this quarterly. So the next one coming up is July 16th. We are going to back it up an hour. I tried to find a good time that will fit everybody, which is never going to be fit for everybody, but we are going to back it up, and it'll be 7 to 8 Eastern Standard Time. And so we're also going to start a Google email group, and that will allow us all to exchange emails without getting bogged down in all the different addresses. So instead of the usual email you get from me that just has 150 addresses, it'll be a Google email group, and it'll basically be VWS RRCs at Google Groups or something like that. So I'll be setting that up in the next few days. You should be getting an email from Google. And if you accept that invitation, you'll get on this group, and we'll work from there. Really, most of the people that we reached out to were graduates of our RRC class, but we really want to open this up to anybody who's interested in recruitment and retention of volunteers. So if you have somebody who would like to be on this, or have somebody who you think could benefit from this, please send them an email or give them my name, and we're glad to add to this. The other thing we really want to do is we want this to be about you. So I want to hear from you as far as Jordan. I asked for Jordan to step up tonight, and he sure did. But I'd like to get other people to just give 15-20-minute talk on something specific to recruitment and retention. So if you're interested in that, please shoot me an email, and we'd love to have you. And basically, be safe out there, everybody. It is a really scary time, and so I hope we can catch up again in July, and you'll be hearing from me soon. So have a good one. Thank you all, and be safe.